The last two people who crossed Rush Limbaugh made public apologies. Now David Frum takes a shot in the Newsweek cover story, quote, "Enough. A conservative's case against Rush Limbaugh." David Frum joins us. Okay, I want to know what it's like. What kind of threats? Physical, political, professional, whatever. You are definitely under the gun here, buddy. This cover story is a direct shot at the big guy.
We'll say the email's running 90 to 10 hostile. Let's say that.
Hostile? How bad have they gotten? Have they gotten threatening?
But it's nothing to complain about.
Anything threatening?
No.
Come on.
No.
Don't tell the cops and don't tell us. Come on. If you've got any physical threats, I want to know about them.
There have been no physical threats.
Okay. How about professional threats? Have you been booked or dumped from any bookings for any show without naming names?
Look, not everybody is happy with this thing. I understand that, but I didn't write it to make people happy or to make people unhappy. I wrote it because we, as Republicans and conservatives, have a very serious problem. We're confronting one of the worst financial crises of the post-war era. And it's a financial crisis in which my party has been flat on its back. But what we are saying is increasingly not only counterproductive economically, but also politically. We look like we don't care. We look like we're indifferent. We don't offer solutions. We were talking about a spending freeze in the middle of a 1929-30 style meltdown.
Is your party going back to Hooverism?
We're just desperate. We're floundering. And but this time it's not Hooverism, because if you talk to individual members of the party one by one, they all know better. They know that the country needs not an Obama-style spending fiscal stimulus, but a tax holiday, something big and dramatic.
Were those three Republican senators right, Specter and Snow and Collins, in backing Barack Obama, giving him the votes he needed to pass the stimulus? Bottom line, if you were a senator, just generally speaking, were they right to give him a break and get that bill passed?
I wouldn't have voted for that bill.
You wouldn't have helped him get it passed?
Not that bill. I would have said I'm for a big payroll tax holiday that would go into effect immediately.
I know about the payroll tax. In other words, it gets money back in the hands of people who are working people. Right?
Up to $120 per week per worker starting last month.
But it sounds like a liberal argument. The funny thing is the liberals haven't pushed it. And I don't know why. Because working people pay a very regressive tax when they go to work, right?
For the $800 billion, you could suspend this thing. But let's get back to Rush Limbaugh.
I want to take a quote. Here's a quote from your piece. Let's go. Rush is to the Republicanism of the 2000s what Jesse Jackson was to the Democratic Party of the 1980s. He plays an important role in our coalition, and of course he and his supporters have to be treated with respect, but he cannot be allowed to be the public face of the enterprise. Now, this is the issue. I watched this weekend, and I didn't think Rahm Emanuel was smart when he decided to put a pin into this big guy and puncture him like he did. But when I saw Newt Gingrich jumping around this weekend, and when I saw John Boehner acting very unhappy, I realized maybe they're smart, the guys in the White House, and maybe they're smart fighting with him.
But they've also got Rush's cooperation. When Rush made this famous statement, many times repeated, "I hope the president fails." Now, look, I wrote speeches, and one of the things you have
a better way of saying it. What would you have said?
I would have said, "I fear the president's liberal plans will fail as liberal plans usually do." Because what you know, when you do these things, and what Rush knows, whenever you have something you want to say, you do never write it in such a way that it can be sliced out and used against you by unfair people, because there are a lot of unfair people.
I've done that many times.
So don't do that.
I know how that's done.
Don't create the clip.
Right.
When the non-ideological middle of the road...
But didn't he do that in an interview? Did you think he planned it?
He did it many times, and in his monologue, at the end of the monologue, he then offers a long explanation, which can be dropped, and at the end of it he says, "I want this to be headlined, Rush Limbaugh hopes Obama will fail."
Why do you think he said it?
Because it's a tremendously memorable phrase. It draws attention to him. It sharpens the difference. Look, I don't know how many listeners he has. They say 20 million. If you have 20 million listeners, you are an incredibly powerful person. Now, if you have 20 million voters, you're Ross Perot. But that doesn't matter, because people who don't like you on the radio, they don't have to listen. They just turn you off. But people who don't like you in politics, there's something they can do about it.
Why don't women like him? They don't, as a rule.
He's harsh, he's divisive, he's bombastic. He has the most male audience of any major public affairs show. He has a 31-point gender gap, as he himself jokes about.
He bragged on that.
He bragged on that. And look,
how do I know? I'm quoting you back. I read the whole piece. I'm giving you. Let's take a look at a new poll that shows an overwhelming number of Republicans, 68%, say the party has no clear leader. And by the way, what's interesting in this new poll is how divided your party is. 5% for McCain say he's the leader. Just 5%. Just 5% say the chairman of the National Committee, Michael Steele, is the leader. Just 2% say Limbaugh, and 1% say Governor Palin of Alaska. So you really don't have a high building, a big person.
And that's partly inherent in the American system. There's no leader of the opposition. But in this moment of crisis, when the country's calling out for solutions, if our leadership are not able to present alternatives, we have to vote against Obama's stimulus because it's big spending, it's slow, it's inefficient, it builds the state. But we have to send two messages. We absolutely take on board the seriousness of what is happening in the country. We are tremendously sympathetic to what people are going through, and we have a better and less statist alternative that will also work. But we aren't allowed to say that. I'm not begrudging Rush Limbaugh's airtime or his fans and admirers. God bless him. But he is hemming in this party for his own purposes in a way that is going to make us uncompetitive in 2010 and 2012.
You accuse him of being commercial, which is fine. Everybody on television and radio is to some extent commercial because you have bosses and you have sponsors. I have a theory about Rush Limbaugh. He's a support group. Just like Dr. Phil is or Oprah is, he's a support group. He addresses men largely who drive around in cars from 12 to 3 every day, East Coast time, selling product. They're in their cars. They're traveling salesmen. It's a brutal job, especially during a recession. It's not even a good time when the times are good. You got to sell. You got to go into a drugstore selling chiclets. You got to walk into a store where you know you're going to face sales resistance. You got a boss back at home say, have you sold? Have you sold? Family and children don't understand how hard you work. And there's only one guy in the car with you all day. That's Rush, telling you, it's you, not the feminazis. It's you, not the quota people. It's you, not. Now, whether it's right or wrong, he's selling himself as an Oprah to white guys driving in cars. Not just all white, mainly guys driving in cars, right?
Yeah.
So you understand this, right? That's his audience.
And that's fine. No complaints.
But you're saying he's not the Republican Party.
We have to be very careful as Republicans, one, to say there are others, two, not to let him control our options. That the Republican Party in Congress has right now to be sending up a clear message.
Do you think he's got a race problem?
Sometimes talks that way.
Lean over, grab your ankles, that thing.
That way. And I don't know whether it's conscious or, but he does. I went through how many times between Inauguration Day and the present he's made a comment about President Obama being invulnerable to criticism because of his race. I found 5 instances, one a week. That's sort of.
But he does that. There's sort of a nag he does like that. He does that about. Donovan McNabb, the Eagle quarterback.
Yeah, look,
he's only given praise because he's black.
That's a one-time. And people,
he plays this sort of weird. It's not.
As we all know, I've said on-air things I wish I hadn't said 30 seconds later.
But there is a theme there. It's like he says, don't give the guy a break. It's almost like he's benefiting from some quota system. Barack Obama won the election against a guy. He didn't get any appointment here.
Whatever is in his head, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is again dangerous because the Republican Party has this image of being a party that is unsympathetic to minorities. And Michael Steele works fiendishly in order to overcome that negative image.
Well, you know what I said to you when you came out here, David? You have changed your life with this article. You will be the man that shot Liberty Valance. You will be the guy that took on Rush Limbaugh.
I'm going to be the
Just don't apologize.
Under his
Do me a favor. Don't apologize. You're a journalist. You don't have to. You can make mistakes, but just don't do that thing. Anyway, thanks, David Frum. Congratulations. You've written an article. You're a literary politician, at least.